AOA podcast, and we're back for another episode. Oh my goodness, on a Monday. Frankie C out on vacation. J Sabs off on assignment. She's doing some wonderful fundraising this evening. So it's a solo show, rare on a Monday, but we have plenty to discuss, including some new Epstein documents that were just released today. The earliest, in fact, they could have been released as by ordered from the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. We've got some alarming things to reveal to you there. So that's coming up on this episode. Plus, the Supreme Court rules on the Trump immunity case. And we found out a little bit more about that Hawk Tua girl. We'll share that with you. Plus, aliens spotted over Red Rocks, and they're making human skin for robots these days. Isn't that comforting? Don't look now, my friends, but that's a podcast. All right, let's go down to Florida. It wasn't that long ago when Governor Ron DeSantis signed an executive order allowing all the documents regarding Jeffrey Epstein to be released. Today, he's a bit of a hero in my eyes. Judge Luis Delgado wrote in his order that the people need to see these documents, and he unveiled a whole bunch of documents that came out. We scanned them, and the biggest thing that jumped out to us is the grand jury testimony that took place, again, before Epstein got his sweetheart deal back in 2008. The grand jury testimony that took place in 2006 is 150 pages. That transcript reveals a heck of a lot. And what's really disturbing about this, most of all, is the depth and the detail that was delivered in this grand jury investigation, as the court had testimony regarding Epstein sexually assaulting girls as young as 14 inside his Palm Beach mansion. Victims also testified and told detectives they were paid to find Epstein more girls to assault. And there's a lot more. But those two things alone, let's go on those. So you have transcripts, testimony from girls who said they were paid to find other girls trafficking. You have testimony saying that he assaulted young girls as young as 14. In one of the testimonies, one of the girls who was responsible for getting other girls said that she had brought Jeffrey Epstein one day, a 23-year-old, and he scolded her because he said that was too old. 23 years old. Too old for Jeffrey Epstein. Sent her away. All of this was discussed in the grand jury investigation. All of this you can read in black and white, letters on a page. And with all of that, the prosecutors down in Florida and Mr. Alex Acosta signed off on this to allow a plea deal to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, there is no excuse whatsoever. Now, we knew that Alex Acosta signed the plea deal, right? We knew all of this stuff, but we didn't know what was in the documents. Was there more to it? Was there the idea that Epstein was a government asset? Was there an idea that maybe some of the evidence was blurry or not conclusive or up in the air, or maybe Epstein had things to offer to the prosecution? No, none of it. No excuse. Cut and dry. This is the worst pedophile in the discovered pedophile that we know of in the history of humankind. And it's accompanied by far the sleaziest and most corrupt cover-up sweetheart plea bargaining deal I have ever seen. I mean, there is zero reason to cut this guy. I mean, it is literally, and I don't throw the analogy around lightly, and I don't use this analogy often enough. If you watch the podcast, you know I don't do this. In fact, I yell at people for doing this. It's the closest thing to giving Adolf Hitler a fucking plea deal that you could come across. I mean, it's the closest thing. Maybe they didn't know the scale of which this operated, but when you look at these court transcripts and you read just the amount of girls in the West Palm Beach area is enough to lock this guy up for the rest of his life. And they gave him a plea bargaining deal. I was flabbergasted reading through these documents today. Now, Judge Luis Delgado, who I said is responsible for releasing these documents today, wrote alongside the accompanying transcripts that basically this was going to enrage people, and he was correct. Because I was pretty friggin' enraged when I was reading some of these things. I mean, there's so much. I can go into some grim detail here about how much they were paid, like just $200 a time. Recruiters were paid $200 each time. 17-year-olds, 14-year-olds. I mentioned the 23-year-old that was sent away. All this stuff was going on, and they knew it, and they gave him a deal anyway. And you want to put a cherry on top of this? Not to get political here, but Mr. Drain the Swamp, Mr. I'm going to clean everything up, Donald Trump nominated this guy for labor secretary. Well, after they all knew what was going on. After this whole thing, I mean, well into by 16 and 17, there was enough buzz about Epstein on the streets after the sweetheart deal to cause some bit of concern, but yet this person was nominated to a cabinet position by a sitting president of the United States of America. You talk about swamp. I mean, it don't get any muddier than that. It's horrific. And the fact that the rest of the prosecution team is allowed to just walk around, on the streets is unbelievable to me, because what we got today was real documentation. There were documents. This is testimony. These are things that happened. This is factual, right? Totally factual. These people said these things. Whether they're lying about those things or not is up for grabs. That's up for anybody or a grand jury or whoever to decide. I believe them, but if you don't, that's okay. It's factual. Those things were said, right? They happened in a court. I have yet to see anything, any sort of documentation anywhere that would have us believe that Jeffrey Epstein was some sort of a government asset, operative, whatever, to allow such a deal to be procured. I mean, nothing even close. I know you can read plenty on the internet. Lord knows there's tons of rumors. I mean, there are so many rumors surrounding Jeffrey Epstein. My unborn children are practically associated. I meant to say my unborn grandchildren. My unborn grandchildren are going to be roped into an Epstein conversation one day. Be like, didn't you, that there's just so much BS out there about him. So this idea that he's Mossad or he's this or he's that, they're wonderful theories. They're not out of left field by any means. I mean, it's certainly possible, because you think to yourself, there's got to be some reason he was given this deal, because it can't be out of the kindness of our hearts, right? He had something on somebody somewhere. But this idea that he was an operative or he was this or he was that, I've yet to see it. It certainly would explain a lot. So if we can put out documents in court in Florida, we should just put out everything about this guy. And I feel like, again, this is akin to the JFK assassination, whereas there's a reason why we don't have this information today. I mean, it's sitting in a file somewhere, right? Right? I mean, Rhoda's got it. Clinton's, maybe. Trump, maybe. I mean, how does this guy wind up on Trump's desk? Right? How does Alex Acosta wind up on Trump's desk for labor secretary? I mean, we know he had a position in the Bush White House, so there's some history there in the Republican Party for Acosta. But how does he wind up getting nominated? How is this not vetted? I mean, immediately vetted. Whenever somebody is up for a cabinet position, who, by the way, has to be approved by Congress, which Acosta was, what's the downside here? Where's the controversy? Those are the first things that happen. When you go to be vetted politically, the first thing they say to you is, look, we're going to find out whatever it is you're hiding. You might as well just tell us now. It's not going to be hidden. Once your name goes out there, it's not going to be hidden. You might as well tell us now. It's the first thing they say. So in all this time of Acosta being interviewed by the Trump administration, did it never come up that he gave the biggest pedophile on the planet a sweetheart plea deal? Did that not arise? Or is this all part of the whole game of you scratch our back and we'll scratch yours? You know, because we know the Clintons were involved. And we know that Trump hung with him back in the day at Mar-a-Lago. And now all of a sudden he gets appointed. I'm sorry. I don't trust the lot of them. I don't care who you are. I don't trust any of them. And honest to goodness, Trump the least of all, because when you go into something proclaiming you're one thing and you're the total opposite, I'm sorry, but there's just no excuse for that. When you go in there going, I'm going to drain the swamp, I'm the option, right? Because Trump was the hope. Trump was this guy's not a politician. Let's give him a try. See what happens. Well, he put one of the biggest pieces of shit on his cabinet. Is it 27 times on Epstein's plane bad? No. I guess you could make that argument. No, it's not that bad. It's also not good. You know, it's also really not good. But you look at the fucking Democrats and they're still parading Clinton around like he's some sort of savior. 27 times on that plane. I can't believe people are still associating themselves with him. Cannot believe it. Can't believe it. Could you imagine reading a report raping a 14-year-old girl? And this thing and that thing. Look, one person says one thing. Okay, you got to, he said, she said, you got to dig in there and figure it out. But when we're talking about a plethora, a vast amount of people, I mean, it's very hard to get 30, 40, 50, 60 people together, make some shit up. Especially about somebody who was relatively unknown back then. I mean, we're not talking about a celebrity. We're not talking about a movie star here. This guy was not known. He was one of many, who the hell knows these people, rich people that lived in West Palm Beach. Fucking disgusting, man. It's fucking disgusting. And Alex Acosta is walking around right now, today, at this time. Guy's probably having fucking dinner somewhere, you know? And the rest of that prosecution team down there in Florida, just going about their business. These people, Alex Acosta and the rest of that prosecution team, they should be brought up on fucking charges. They should be brought up on charges. You know, it's like everybody talks about the district attorneys that let all these people go and then they go out and they murder somebody. It's like, you know, you should be held somewhat responsible for that. Can you predict what a person is going to do? No, you can't. But, you know, some of these cases you read about these guys who murder people and it's like, well, but they were out on like their fourth time on bail. This is their third time out on bail with violent history of crimes. And then they kill somebody and they're like, oh, that's a shame. But why did you let them out? So we're talking about that analogy with basically a group of people who let Jeffrey Epstein go on this sweetheart deal. And then for the next 10 years, he continued to run the biggest child trafficking ring this world has ever seen. I'm sorry. Some responsibility should fall on your head. And you could talk to me till you're blue in the face about how, well, Alex Acosta probably just signed a paper on what the other prosecutors, okay. But you're telling me out of this group of people, they're allowed to just go on with life and everything is fine? no issues, no recourse. Could you imagine? Could you imagine signing off on something and then you go to find out that that caused immense mental distress, physical harm to hundreds of people? I mean, how could you live with yourself? I would feel horrible about that. I would honestly turn myself in. I'd be like, I don't know how I fucked this up so bad or what I did wrong, but I shouldn't be allowed to walk the streets. I shouldn't be allowed to eat, do normal shit. I let the biggest pedophile, child trafficking ringleader go. And he got to do whatever the hell he wanted for the next 10 years. No recourse. Nothing. Bird goes, my first order of business as president is to arrest everyone currently in government and in Hollywood. It's not a bad start. I got to be honest with you. That's not a bad step one. You know what I'm saying? It's just not. It's not a bad step one at all. It's crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy. And then you have all these people, Trump, Biden, and they go, oh, we're going to release the document. When? They asked Trump in that interview on Fox News, are you going to release they said, are you going to release the JFK thing? He goes, yeah. You're going to release the moonlight, whatever the fuck else it was. Yeah. You're going to release the Epstein thing? And he goes, well, that's interesting. And he stutters. He delayed. And by the way, Fox edited around that. We never really talked about that too much because we got clips prior to it hitting the air. And when that aired, he answers almost immediately. But when you go and look at the uncut clips on that, he dances around that. And by the way, it's not like he didn't have 4 fucking years to do it if he wanted to. Unless we forget that when he was questioned about Ghislaine Maxwell while he was president, he said, I wish her luck. I wish her luck. Come on. Come on. I hate to go so hard on Trump here, but I spent a day looking at comments, in our section about people still just licking his asshole like he's the second coming. This guy is the same wolf in sheep's clothing that all the rest of them are. Wednesday, we're going to get more into Project 2025 because I've been going to town researching that thing, and that gets fucking scarier the more and more I read it. So if you don't know about that and you want some layman's term explanation thrown your way, I'll be happy to share that with you. We'll do that on Wednesday's episode. The Supreme Court ruled today on the Trump immunity case, and liberals, of course, are losing their minds. I don't think it's a great ruling. I think what we're seeing here is a court of 6 conservative justices just doing whatever they can to further their cause against a group of 3 liberal justices who are just going to vote against everything that they do. No matter what it is. Now, if you're unfamiliar, in this particular case, Trump is up for one of the cases in election fraud, and he's going through the whole thing. And basically, his defense team has said, well, the president of the United States has immunity. They're using that whole kind of clause. So, okay, it went to the Court of Appeals. He lost there. It continued, and then they finally decided to kick it up to the Supreme Court. And today, the Supreme Court released their ruling. And I'm needless to say, I'm a little surprised. Donald Trump obviously loves it, but I'm a little surprised at how they went about it. Basically, they're saying that he's got absolute immunity, which is pretty scary here. Pretty scary. Chief Justice Roberts wrote, like everyone else, the president is subject to prosecution in his unofficial capacity. But unlike anyone else, the president is a branch of government, and the Constitution vests in him sweeping powers and duties. accounting for that reality and ensuring that the president may exercise those powers forcefully as the framers anticipated he would does not place him above the law. It preserves the basic structure of the Constitution from which that law derives. Roberts further went on to stress that Congress may not criminalize the president's conduct in carrying out the responsibilities of the executive branch under the Constitution. They sent the matter back down to the lower courts for further analysis, as Roberts contended it is ultimately the government's burden to rebut the presumption of immunity. So exactly how we have the presumption of innocence if you're a citizen of the United States and you go up for a criminal case, you're presumed innocent until proven guilty. In these particular instances, when you're bringing a case against the president of the United States, we are to presume immunity unless otherwise proven. And basically what the Supreme Court said was you have to decide if an act of a president is an official act or an unofficial act. So if it's an official act of the president of the United States of America, there's immunity. You can't prosecute a president for an official act as president. However, they said that a president can perform unofficial acts, and those are subject to prosecution. There's no immunity there. So if you call on the Arizona state legislature to, do what Donald Trump called on them to do, is that an official act or not? That's up for the lower courts to determine. But you could understand that this gets pretty hairy pretty quickly, because what's an official act or not? As the president of the United States, you swear to uphold the Constitution. If you feel that your political opponent has compromised an election and is, quote unquote, staging a military coup or a coup of some sort, shouldn't the president of the United States have the right to put that down with extreme prejudice? Isn't that an official act to keep the Constitution of the United States in order? How do we know? Because if a president of the United States, because now we have to play in the hypothetical world, but if the president of the United States were to take out a political opponent just prior to an election and is asked about it, the president of the United States is going to say what? Well, he was a threat to the Constitution, so took him out. And now we cannot assume or presume that he is just taking out or exacting revenge on a political opponent. We have to presume immunity, that he was acting in an official capacity to protect and uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. They gave the executive branch today, while deteriorating their own power, an awful lot of power to the executive branch. An awful lot of power. A scary amount of power. Because let's say that a president of the United States were to take out a political opponent for fear that they were staging a coup in the country. Do you know how long it would take to prove such a thing? I mean, we're talking about years, months of testimonies and hearings and cross-examinations. It would be endless. And so that's kind of what we have in this particular situation. Coming out of our hypothetical for a second here, now you have a case where Donald Trump has been able to kick the can down the road as much as he can, so that particular court case, there's no way they can get things together and try him before the election. So that's going to be kicked down the road. And then let's say he is elected. What could he do? Grant himself immunity? We already have to presume immunity. He'll be a sitting president at the time. Right? I mean, what do you do there? What is an official act as a president? Where does that stop and start? It's a very gray area. Now, the president of the United States, there's a White House counsel, right? The president of the United States, the White House, there is legal counsel. They are there to advise the president on what is legal and illegal that they can do. Does the president have to consult with them first? I mean, typically a good president will. They will consult with the Office of White House Counsel. They will advise them on what and where their power stops and starts under the Constitution. Now we have a whole slew of new laws, you know. Again, if a president wants to take out a political opponent, how long can they drag that around just saying, well, this is classified? I can't tell you how we knew or what we know. It's classified information. From the president of the United States, this was an official act. And the Supreme Court ruled and set precedent today that that's perfectly acceptable. It's perfectly acceptable. If the president of the United States wanted to just take out a leader of another country, they could. Even if he was a bad person, there's no legal recourse for this now because of this ruling. It's an extreme scenario. You're going to see it on all the liberal outlets. But I can't find I don't have an argument against it. What is to stop Joe Biden from taking out Donald Trump tomorrow and claiming that his past trespasses to prove election fraud where there has not been any proof yet was enough for me to decide that he was unfit and unsafe and a threat to the Constitution. So we took him out to uphold and preserve the Constitution of the United States of America. Going by that logic, nobody would be able to prosecute Joe Biden. Going by that logic. It wouldn't be able to be done. There would be presumed immunity. That's it. That's it. It seems like a really dumb fucking argument. But put a hole in it. Judging by the way the ruling was written out today. I mean, it seems crazy. Congress may not criminalize the president's conduct in carrying out the responsibilities of the executive branch under the Constitution. It's under the Constitution. It's not like there's a list of responsibilities. There's a lot of gray area. We were already having fights and arguments about who, about the president being able to go to war without Congress and all these things, right? I mean, just think about that. President can't go to war without Congress. We've had like 6 wars. How does he do it? Well, they're not technically wars. They're conflicts, right? He can mobilize and send troops. As long as he doesn't declare war, as long as the president of the United States doesn't declare war, he does not need the approval of Congress. The executive branch found a way around, found a gray area, and was able to do that. Now, what happened? In every case that this was an issue, they were allowed to do it because Congress was sitting there going, all right. They let the president go as far as they deemed was necessary in this. It's just a conflict, not a war thing. And we've seen several presidents use this methodology, right? So these sort of gray area instances happen all the time. The struggle of power between the 3 branches happens all the time. But what happens? There's some sort of resolution discovered, right? Congress and the president and the Supreme Court always find a way to make it balance and work. Okay, I understand you have to go into Iraq and this and that. Okay, and they provide money and whatever they have to do. But if the president of the United States were just to roll into France, let's say, an ally of ours, and take that country over, Congress wouldn't stand for it. But now, because of SCOTUS, they don't have a choice, really. Because now we have to wholeheartedly trust the person in that seat because they have presumed immunity. I'm appalled that the justices would come to a conclusion such as this. They're saying that they're limiting the decision by kicking it back to the lower courts to decide what's an official act and what's not an official act. So that was like their little like scapegoat area of like, well, this is not totally a thing. But that decision of presumed immunity for the president of the United States, that's something that our children's children 80 years from now might have to deal with from a future president who may not be as morally superior as some of our past presidents have been. Because I don't know if you've noticed this, but in the last few years, the morality of some of these people, I'd say, on the decline. I'd say the morality of a Abraham Lincoln, a bit higher than the last, 30 presidents. 31 presidents. Basically saying, I don't know if we've had a moral person since Abraham Lincoln. But my point, you get the point, right? I mean, it's nuts. It's nuts. You know? Rhoda with a great question. Were you appalled when Obama killed 2 Americans without trial? What 2 Americans are we talking about here, Rhoda? Listen, presidents get in weird, sticky situations. Do presidents break rules? Yes, they do. Do they bend and break laws at times to, quote unquote, protect us? Yeah, I'm sure they do. I'm sure we could sit here and go through every president, like I said, for the last 30 of them, and find issues and flaws in their presidencies, in their administrations. I'm certain of it. But there was always you're going to have to answer for this. You're just going to have to. And now it seems like, if it was an official act, go ahead. No big deal. You understand? I'm not saying that they're going to be able to get away with every last thing. I mean, it doesn't help. But again, the amount of time that it's going to take in depositions, interviews, hearings, court cases to decide if one simple act is official or unofficial, you're talking about years. 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 So that does not make me feel good. I have to be honest. Between this, Roe v. Wade, the Chevron thing, I don't know what is going on with this court, but they're running roughshod. And it seems like we're getting into really scary territory. And this is why we never, not that we never let, but it never really happened where you had one president put 3 people on a court. I mean, even if you are a religious, abortion hating person who has a business, even if you're the most conservative of conservative, can you really feel good about the last couple of rulings coming out of the Supreme Court? I would love to know. If you're a conservative and a Republican, be totally honest. It's not about the war against liberalism and woke culture. It's not about sticking it to CNN or MSNBC. I mean, talk honestly. if you have a family, if you have a daughter, if you're a woman yourself, if you're a business owner, I would love to know if you feel confident and great about the last 3 to 4 months of the Supreme Court's actions. I would just love to know. Because I would be shocked if you could sit there as a conservative and be like, yeah, I think it's going great. I think it's amazing. I think this is the America that everybody envisioned. You know, we talk about that. We didn't really talk about that Chevron thing the other day, but this ruling coming out of the Supreme Court the other day was like, okay, back in the day, the Congress would pass a law, and there would, even as detailed as those things could be, there would still be some gray areas. And so whenever there was an issue, the benefit of the doubt went to the government agency that was handling it, whether that was the EPA and the environment, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, whatever it was. We defaulted that the agencies that oversee these particular areas know what they're doing, and they get the benefit of the doubt. Now, could you still have a lawsuit? Could you still sue to get your way? Absolutely. That's always available to every citizen of the United States of America, no matter what the laws are. You could always sue to fight in court. The courts are always available to us no matter what. But there was just a presumption that the agencies know what they're doing, and they got the benefit of the doubt. The court ruling the other day, you lose that. So now if a company wanted to save a couple bucks and use a cheaper plastic on water bottles, they could. And there's nothing stopping them. And if the FDA says, well, you can't do that, and they say, well, show me in this law or any law passed by the Congress of the United States of America that says I cannot use this particular plastic to transport my water. It's obviously not going to be there. So they can do it. So the FDA, I mean, you talk about reform and deregulating, you're going to be flooding the courts with lawsuits over these things. So instead of the agencies just kind of knowing the deal, and listen, where I live on the eastern of Long Island, you cannot find more red tape than in this area. I mean, there are some businesses that I used to work with on the radio who they couldn't even put a sign with lights on outside. There are towns in the Hamptons where you cannot have a neon sign. Do you know there was a pizzeria that had been around since like the 40s or something, and they had a neon sign, and they actually had to go to court to fight to keep it? Court. The neon sign said open. That's it, open. They took this business to court over that fucking sign. And the courts decided you can't have neon signs, but this one place is grandfathered in. That's it. That was it. It's the only neon sign in all of Amagansett. It's at the pizza place, which coincidentally I think is closed down now anyway. So it's a fine for nothing, basically, when you look at it. But my point is there's regulations and red tape, and it fucking sucks. But you know what? Some of it is good. Some of it you need. There has to be somebody to protect us from big corporations that are only out to make profits. You know what I mean? We trust these agencies to do that. Again, I get it. I've been on the business side of it. I've had to deal with fucking permits and bullshit and all kinds of crazy things. You buy a house, Jesus, all the fucking shit that goes even with that. It's nuts. I hate it. But man, it feels good at the end of the day to kind of be like, oh, there's somebody out there watching our backs for us. You know? Somebody. Nobody in the live chat at least has come up saying, yeah, they're doing a great job. Except for Rhoda, who says, this is an interesting point. If you are an originalist, I haven't heard that before. What's an originalist? Is that like somebody who believes in the first 10 amendments and that's it? Is that an originalist? How's that different from a nationalist? Rhoda says, if you're an originalist, you believe Congress isn't functional and you see these rulings as the Supreme Court forcing Congress to do their real job. I don't know. I don't know about that. Will says, okay, yeah, they're doing a great job. LMFAO. Yeah, I don't think anybody thinks they're doing a great job. No, intemperate? You interpretate? The Constitution as it is written. We wouldn't. The brilliance of our founding fathers was they knew enough to know that they didn't know everything, and they wrote the Constitution to be changed. And it's why it's why we even have a Supreme Court, because the idea is we govern ourselves, and the way we feel about things 150 years ago is not how we feel about things now. And the way we feel about things now is probably not how we're going to feel about things 150 years from now. And the beauty of the United States of America and our Constitution is it allows us that flexibility. So rulings that the Supreme Court was giving us back in, 1899, a lot different than what we're going to be getting in 2024. But that's the idea. We're here to we're here to just decide for ourselves. Courts here to interpret and decide and make those decisions on the law. So this idea of interpret the Constitution as it's written, I think, is a fundamental flaw and goes directly against what the founding fathers wanted, which was for us to interpret it how we see fit every step of the way. You can't just be like, oh, this is what they meant, this is how they wrote it. No, I don't go for that. I just don't go for that. I'm sorry. I just don't think that's not what they wanted. They wouldn't have given us, they would have put the Supreme, by the way, they had the idea of a court. They decided to make one be a part of the three branches of government for this very reason. So I don't buy that whole thing of just how it's written. That's just not the way they wanted it. Just don't think so. So that's the Supreme Court. And I'll tell you what, it's an interesting, I don't think any of them are going anywhere anytime soon, but you just don't know. That's another thing to think about. Do we need, if one of the liberal judges were to leave, God forbid, pass away or whatever, retire, which they wouldn't do if there was a Republican president, do we need a seventh conservative voice? And this, again, goes back to my problem with Donald Trump. It was conservative. He's getting played by his party more than anybody I've ever seen. He's a puppet master. He just wants to be told he's doing a good job and get a pat on the head like a dog, while the craziest people, the craziest portion of his Republican Party are just running things. His tax cuts weren't his tax cuts. They were McConnell's. And God knows whatever else deregulations are going to be running through here is all not him and somebody else. He put these three people on. It would have been nice to put one liberal on and two conservatives. You would have still had your majority. You would have just given the court a chance. No president really ever had more than one or maybe two the most be put on the courts. And it's the reason why every president's had the ability to pack the court with more justices, and they just haven't, because it was nice to have your conservatives, your Republicans, and then that one or two that would float between the two, depending on what the issue was. The court seemed to run very smoothly in that matter. Again, when we were working together, because half this country is conservative, half this country is Republican. And isn't it nice when we're both represented, when we feel like we're both kind of equally represented? And okay, we win this one and then we lost that one, and then we lost this one but we won that one, and you move on your merry little way, instead of what we have now, which is just constantly one side shoving it down the other side's throat until you just have unrest. It's a compromise. It's not about winning or losing. I wish people would just fucking get that. They're so proud when their side has a little victory in the day. It's like, get over yourself. It's all supposed to be a compromise. All right, here's the truth behind. Let's take that again. We'll cut that out. Here's the truth behind the Hawk Tua girl. She's not the son of a preacher. She's not a teacher. There's all these crazy rumors going around about the Hawk Tua girl since she rose to fame. Well, she was recently on the podcast Plan Brie Uncut. And we learned that she's a 21-year-old gal. She, again, is not her dad. She says her dad is the farthest thing from a preacher. She isn't a teacher. She did not delete her social media because of this. She had deleted her social media way prior to the Hawk 2 thing taking off. She's from a small town in Tennessee. In fact, she works for a spring factory. I don't know if you could find a more non-interesting job. Could you imagine if you were on a date and you said, "What do you do for a living?" "Oh, I work at a spring factory." I'd be like, "Oh, I have so many questions. Are you in the curling department? Are you in the department that squeezes it down? What kind of springs we're talking about here? Big springs, small springs? I don't. Hope Springs, what are we doing? I have so many. Are you in the HR department? What are you? Are you in R&D? Because I got to be honest, it seems like we got one sort of spring design and that's it. We have stopped innovating on the spring front. Have you noticed that? There's not been a second version of the spring since the spring. So this idea that she works at a spring factory is just so fascinating to me. So fascinating. Well, that's what she does. And she now plans, she has a management team behind her. She's got merch in which she claims that she's already sold tens of thousands of pieces of branded merch. If you go on her social media right now, there's pictures of her with the Hawk Tua hat that's being sold, and there's some shirts and things. Brianna on Plan Brie Uncut asked her what she plans on doing, if she's going to be doing a show or she's going to be just an internet personality. And she responded, just an internet personality. And that she plans on going on other podcasts. So, again, I do this for a living. So now we're in my little area of expertise. Now that we have an interview of Hawk Tua girl on a podcast, I can't imagine what the second podcast to have her on would ask. I mean, I know why. I mean, if I got offered Hawk Tua today, I would take it because it's gonna do big numbers. But after that little bump wears off, after your 2 or 3 podcasts, again, if I'm the second podcast, I'd be like, so caught you by surprise. Like, I mean, Brianna, bless her heart, and I'm not too familiar with Brianna. I know of her. I know she's a big deal. She's dating one of the big country guys, Zach Bryan or Luke Bryan or Zachary Lucas. I don't know. She's one of the big guys. I'm sorry, I'm just not a country person. I'm sure she's great, and he's great, and they're great. But she asked all the questions. She did it all. That's it. She dispelled the rumors on where she's from and what she does and who her dad is. And now what else do we want to know? You know what I mean? Like, this would terrify me. If I'm Hawk Tua girl, I'd be like terrified. How do you parlay one stupid, silly internet moment into a career? I hope she does it. I just don't see. I mean, I don't know. What do we need to know from Hawk Tua girl? Do we need dating advice from Hawk Tua girl? I mean, I guess that could be one thing. Somebody on the internet who does like all this kind of stuff said what she should do is go out and interview other people. Really? Because we don't have a billion of those people running around. I think Hawk Tua girl, I'm going to say this today. Here's an old prediction. Put it on the list. Take it to the bank. Somebody write the shit down. It is Monday, July 1st. I bet you Hawk Tua girl is the biggest fall from grace that we have ever seen. And I don't know how fast it's going to come. I don't know if it's going to be, on the level of Tiger Blood, Charlie Sheen. Remember how everybody loved him? And then all of a sudden, right? What happened with him? Let's give him a live show. Everybody went to the show and it sucked because he's an actor. He doesn't know how to do a live show. He went flaming down in flames. I think this will be a bigger fall from grace. Does she deserve to cash in? Absolutely. I hope she sells 1 million of those Hawk Tua shirts. I think they're brilliant. I'd buy one. I also believe that everybody's given a God-given talent, and I mean, unless hers is being an internet personality, maybe it is. I could be wrong. But as I sit here with you today on Monday, July 1st, I project that this girl will fall and fall hard. Because I know what the internet does to people. I know what we Americans do to people, right? We blow people up. We love it. We love it. And then we go, would you see this tweet from 2013? This is a little much. Let's look into this tweet. And then it's the old internet account. And then her ex-boyfriend comes out. And then her teacher talks about what a shitty student. And then it's just all, then you're just in it. Then you're just in the corner taking punches. Is she going to lose her job at the spring factory? She quit that spring factory. She was gone. Boing, like a loose spring, baby. She was out of there. She was fucking gone. I'd be like, I would have told that spring factory, can I take a leave of, I'm not quitting. Can I take a leave of absence? Because I think I'll be back in 6 months. I just don't think it's going to last. And I mean, bless the internet now. I mean, we're going to see Hawk Tua girl is going to be, I mean, God bless her heart. What's she going to do? A WD-40 commercial? Like, I'm sure there'll be a couple of interesting, fun little things. The screen door jam. Got to give that old Hawk Tua with WD-40. I'm sure. I feel like I should get credit for that. That's kind of a brilliant idea, the WD-40 idea. I'm sure there's going to be something that we're going to be like, oh, yeah. But in a couple of years, it'll be like, whatever happened to that Hawk Tua girl? And then maybe she gets a Super Bowl commercial. You're like, oh, remember Hawk Tua? Remember that? And in a couple more years, Paul said it better than I, she'll be doing porn. That's really, right? I mean, that's kind of where we all wind up. She's going to be doing porn. Because then it's going to be like, hey, when all that easy WD-40 money dries up, I mean, what else? What else is left? I don't even know. Remember the super glue girl? No. See? No. I have no idea. Super glue girl and all the, the kid who was like, is this real? All those fucking people. Where are any of them? Who, they're gone. Who the hell knows where they are? You get your 15 minutes and then you mosey on back to the old spring factory, and hopefully you were nice enough to everybody to get your gig back. Could you imagine? Thank God Hawk Tua was back, because I'll tell you what, we were dying. Springs were flat. Springs were not good. Jim came up with a square spring, thought that was a good idea. Stupid. They got to be round. Hawk Tua she would have stopped that. She was off trying to make it in the world. Who are you going to call? Hawk Tua. There's some funny ass memes out there. But that's the thing. They don't come from her. They're coming from other people. After you do this initial, not everybody is worthy of such. I think this is just too big for her. I have nothing against her. I hope she has a long career. Who knows? Maybe she's an amazing country singer and she'll be winning Grammys one day. I would be so thrilled. I'd be like, look at little Hawk Tua up there on the Grammy stage picking up that trophy. Good for her. I'd be so thrilled. It's like how I root for Jelly Roll. It's like, oh, that was a shitty life, and now all of a sudden it's great. I just don't see how you parlay this into a long-term career. I just don't see people going, did you see Hawk Tua on that podcast the other day? Did you hear what she said? It was amazing. Let me share it with you. I just don't see it. I'm sorry. I wish I was a better person. Unfortunately, I was blessed with the responsibility and the need to tell the truth. So that's Hawk Tua, girl. God bless her heart. Let's see what happens. I hope we're all wearing Hawk Tua high heels one day. But I don't see it. Aliens over Red Rocks. This is a little creepy for me. Red Rocks is a historic amphitheater. If you're not familiar, just like cut on the side of a mountain. You go and you sit there and you've got just these beautiful there's mountains on either side of you, and it forms this wonderful, just cavernous stage. The stage is down low. So you enter the place and then you walk down, you're looking down on the stage, which is kind of rare because most stages, are usually like, you're even. And then of course you have a little bit more people, but the whole thing is down. So even if you're in the front row, you're kind of, I guess you're kind of eye level, but row 5, you're looking down on the people. But then behind the stage is just the beautifulness of the big sky country behind it. Just big, beautiful Colorado sky, just gorgeous, wonderful place. I've been dying to go to Red Rocks since the early 90s when I first even heard a place like this existed. I was like, I can't believe there's an amphitheater that's just built on the side of a mountain. It must be gorgeous. I'd love to go see a show there. And it's still on my list to do. Well, the other night, they're wrapping up a concert with Ian Munsick, who's a country music star. That's actually Ian used to be the Superglue Girl. It's an interesting, really crazy trajectory. But anyway, so Ian Munsick's on stage. The crew there, they're sweeping up, they're cleaning up, they're turning the lights down, putting the drums away, whatever they're doing. There's about a dozen of them. It's about 1:00 in the morning, June 5th. They look up in the sky. What do they see? UFO. One of the coworkers turned around and said, "Hey, what's that over there? It looks like a spaceship," according to a report that's been leaked. They all turned to look in the direction that he was pointing in, and sure enough, there was a quote-unquote UFO hovering about a half a mile to a mile north of Red Rocks. A dozen of us saw it. We all kept asking each other, "Are you seeing this too?" It was a resounding yes from everyone in the group, according to this report, again, that's been leaked. The UFO apparently hovered above the treetops near the Golden Venue for about 30 seconds before it disappeared into thin air. Isn't that the scariest part? You're seeing it, and you're like, the fuck is that? And all of a sudden, gone. Gone. That's scary. Is Red Rocks near Bird? We'll need to get a report from Bird on this. And I don't think Big Sky Country is just in Montana. I feel like everything out west is Big Sky Country. Is there a restriction on Big Sky Country? Because I was in Wyoming, and I remember going, "This is what fucking what's his name was singing about." That's why he wrote the song "Big Sky Country," because I'm like, he had to be fucking here. There's just no two ways about it. Paul also, how come they come and never attack? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Because I feel like if I was an alien, I'd fucking steamroll this planet. I'd be like, they're fucking shit up anyway. We'll just take them over. It'll be easier. TD said, I actually been there for a 420 concert and it looks amazing in person. Bet you even better on 420. I also had always wanted to visit there. I'm just so jealous, TD. So jealous. I'm dying to go there. Because I want to go. I want it to be good. I want it to be. I don't think Dave Matthews plays there anymore. He used to back in the day. I would love to go see Dave there. I'd love to go see OAR there. Maybe like Nathaniel Rateliff or somebody cool like that. But that's a big to do. It's like an ordeal to get there. I think. I could be wrong. But I know, you got to take a plane. You got to rent a car. You got to do the whole thing. But I would love to just go there and just be present in the moment. That's one of those places where you're just present. You're in the moment. It's so great. I tell you, we're spoiled here on Long Island because we have Jones Beach, where they literally built a stage in water, and then they built an amphitheater, behind it. So you're just like watching this. You're like watching a show, and just beautiful water, and you see just boats out there and everything. It's kind of amazing to see, but I think it's second place to what Red Rocks is. And I don't know if I'm just saying that because I'm spoiled with the Jones Beach and it feels bigger in my head, but it just feels bigger in my head, Nikki says, I used to run the bleachers there when I lived in Golden, Colorado. It was the best workout ever. Yeah. With some view too, Nikki, I bet. That must be much better than jumping on that steps machine in the gym they got, Too many mirrors in a gym. Have you noticed that? You're on that fucking thing and just looking at yourself, just being like, Jesus Christ, guy. Get a view of something better. That might be good for most people. It does not work for your old pal Ant. I don't want to be looking at this when I'm fucking trying to change this. It doesn't help. It just makes it more depressing. So yeah, I don't know. There's something about a group of workers after a concert seeing something like this out west. It makes me believe it more. Is that crazy? Is that a little silly? But I feel like it just, I don't know. There's something that's just like, yeah, you think 12 of them just got together and said, let's make up this crazy story so we can get in the paper. I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. I tend to really believe them on that. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I guess we'll see what happens sooner than later, maybe. Who knows? And this is the worst fucking story of the whole thing. Everything we talked about, the Epstein documents, the Supreme Court, excuse me, poor little Hawk Tua girl failing, the aliens coming, all of it. Put it aside. This is the worst story of the episode. We got people working on grafting and making and creating human skin for quote unquote, this is the best part about it. Well, basically, they put it on some robots. So basically, they gave robots like human skin so that they could like have emotions and shit like that. They say they're doing it, though. Here, this is what they say. A study published in Cell Reports Physical Science on Tuesday, researchers created the artificial skin using living cells in a lab. The scientists mimic human skin ligaments predominantly composed of collagen and elastin with diminutive connective tissue that anchor the skin to the underlying tissues. They helped a layer of skin take hold and enabled fluid facial expressions. By mimicking human skin ligament structures and by using specially made V-shaped perforations in solid materials, we found a way to bind skin to complex structures, the study said. And the reason why, it could be useful in the cosmetics industry and to help train plastic surgeons. This is according to a statement from researchers from the University of Tokyo. Yeah, we're putting human skin on robots to help train plastic surgeons. What? Huh? Then put it on a fucking mannequin head. Why are you slapping it on a robot? You know what you're doing. You're trying to raise money so you can sell the crazy fucking ChatGPT robot making people some skin. What is it supposed to make us feel better that we're being murdered by a robot that looks like us? I mean, I don't know. Oh, see, I didn't even think of this. For sex. Look at this. Lindarilla, it's for sex. Paul, in caps, for sex. I don't think so. I mean, would we use something like this for sex? Now that you pointed out, 100%, yes. I see it now. But I'm looking past the initial, how can we have an orgasm for this new technology, straight to, why are they putting all that human skin on all those Chat GPT AI robots over there? That's where my head went. Maybe I need to go to the therapist a little bit more. Maybe I should have went to, this is going to make an incredible sex robot. I swear to God, I'm almost disappointed in myself that I didn't think of that. I should have, that's where I should have been. But I went right to, they're putting this on robots to make, they're going to make robots more humane. I mean, think about it. Just think about it. This is just basic marketing. Are you going to buy the robot that looks like the crazy fucker from iRobot that could kill you? Or are you going to buy the same thing that just looks like a human being and is smiling? You're just going to be like, I don't know, something about that smile. It feels a little safer. Let's get that Robo 9000. And it doesn't matter because they're all going to murder us in the end. This skin is just going to help it, just help it get into more homes. You know what I'm saying? It's just going to help us get into more, those things into more homes so that they could brutally murder us in our sleep. Let's hope it's in our sleep because I feel like they're going to do it while we're awake. Didn't think of the skin thing. That's interesting. Could you imagine? Oh, I worked on the newest robot over there at Boston Robotics. Oh, no kidding. What'd you work on, Jim? The vagina. Yeah, it was really just, it's very hard to get it just to that right. You know, you just got to, you know, but we were able to get, you know, with the fake skin from 10 years ago, we were able to make it happen. It's a realistic vagina. Like, how do you tell people that? I'd be like, yeah, I was working on the ankles. I'm responsible for the ankles. That's where, is that true, Ant? Because we heard you were on the vagina team. Yeah. Yeah. What team of the, what robot team are you on? Oh, I'm on team asshole. It was my job to make sure the asshole was just right. This is exactly like a human asshole. They said I'm the biggest asshole. Put him on it and see what he can come up with. Could you imagine that's your gig? You're working on the asshole. You know, we were really having problems with the robot vagina, but when we started purchasing springs from Hawk Tua's spring company, that's when things really, just really took off for us. That's when we made the biggest leap we could. When we got that Hawk Tua spring on it. See, I can't. Robin says Westworld season 1 was great. Is this what happens in Westworld? Because I can't watch Our Demise anymore. I can't do it. I'm already in The Last of Us. I can't be in another thing where we're just fucking, you know, getting slaughtered and killed. I just can't do it. I can't be a part of it. Sorry. I wish I could. I'm just not strong enough. Not on the board, but bonus topic. The Bear. Season 3. No spoilers. I'm 2 episodes in. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Episode 1 is one of the slowest episodes I've ever seen on television. But it is so wonderful and so well put together. It is a great combination of recapping the history that we knew, giving us a little bit more that we didn't know, and giving us a little bit more of what's going on right now that we're back. Oh my God. It is so good. And then episode 2, the non-negotiables. That show, man, I don't know what it is. That show is striking such a chord with me, but I put that thing on and I just feel such at ease. I'm like, this is just, Cuddles and I watched 2 episodes. We were going into 3, but, you know, she had a long day. She was tired. She tapped out. I'm like, I could have stayed up till 4:00 in the morning finishing the whole thing. And it was hard for her to turn it to be like, we got to stop here, you know? I don't want to do spoilers, but I'm going to answer Paul's question. Kinda. You do see her in some of the flashbacks, but I don't know if she's still, like, I don't know what her role is going to be moving forward. She's in some of the flashbacks on episode 1. Episode 1 is so good. Because the great thing about that show is it builds this tension all the time. but it wasn't that way in the first episode. Yeah, were there some tense moments? There were, but it was so just smooth. And whoever scored episode 1, I mean, they just did a masterful job where you're just like, oh yeah, it's like easing into a hot tub. You're like, oh yeah, these characters. Oh yeah, that guy does that. I forgot. Oh yeah, that happened. And now they're looking back on it. You know, all these things. You're just like easing into that first dip into the hot tub. That is exactly what episode 1 is like. And then episode 2 is wonderfully hilarious with the non-negotiables. I can't comment on episode 3. I just started it. But there's your little quick review on The Bear, season 1, episodes 1 and season 3, episodes 1 and 2. I can't wait for the rest. I'm so blown away. I can't wait for the rest. And it's the kind of thing too, where it's like you're at a buffet. Could you eat everything there? Yeah, you could, but you gotta just control. You gotta pace yourself and just have a little at a time to get that maximum enjoyment going. You know, cannot suggest The Bear enough. It's an FX show, but it's streaming on Hulu. If you haven't checked it out yet, go watch seasons 1 and 2. They're brilliant, and then you can get into season 3 right now. And I'll keep dropping these little reviews of what I think. I'll go more in depth if you guys want, but I want to give everybody time to watch it before we start talking about spoilers and all that jazz. But it's so good. I'll never forget, I got hooked on that show because one of the film critics that I follow on social said there's an episode where there's no cuts. The whole episode from start to finish is just one big long story. And I was like, how the hell do you do that for 22 minutes? I was like, I got to see this for myself. And that's how I got hooked. Just got hooked. Wonderful characters. Just biting. Funny the way The Sopranos is funny. Like, maybe you didn't laugh the first time you watched The Sopranos, but the second time and the third time, when you start to really get to know those characters, you are cackling at some of the things that they are saying. And that's kind of the way The Bear is too. It's basically just on that exact level. All right, fun Monday solo show. Like I said, Jay Sabs is out there doing her fundraising for the Star Legacy Foundation. That's the foundation that she represents. They do the research on stillborn birth and all that. Wonderful organization. She's out doing some fundraising for that tonight. They had a big gala. I wish I could have been there. Was planning on being there. Circumstances changed, so we got to do the live show with you tonight. But I wish her all the luck. If there's a way to donate again, you guys have donated so much in the past. I can't thank you enough. I'll put a link out for sure. Frankie C's on vacation, much and well-deserved vacation. He's out there cruising the high seas, so he'll be back with us at the end of the week, though. So possibly another solo show Wednesday. Maybe Jay Sams is with us. We'll see how it goes, but you'll be here. I'll be here. That's all that really matters. So until then, enjoy yourselves a wonderful Tuesday, and we're back with you here Wednesday night, right on the old podcast every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See ya.
Show me potato salad.
Maybe we should go now.
Go ahead.